It's Dave here, Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers, been writing on the Minnesota Vikings for over 2 decades apiece. That's a long time making our thoughts public. But it is what it is. And we're going into this week 4 where the Vikings are visiting the New Orleans Saints in London. Tally ho! And we'll have 3 themes to start this show off with. First one, can we give thanks to Dan Campbell? We're going to be going over briefly the Detroit Lions game of week 3 and how it was a scrappy one. There's a lot of good things to be taken from it. There was a lot of things that you go, ugh. But thankfully, Dan Campbell makes a wrong decision, which helped the Vikings spur on to that last-minute touchdown drive, that beautiful pass from Kirk Cousins to KJ Osborne was a thing of beauty. Secondly, we'll be talking about it's been 3 weeks of football, regular season football so far. Are you liking what you're seeing with Kevin O'Connell and how he calls games, how you like his offense, how the defense is working, etc.? It's a good question, because there is some moments of pause where we go, wish that was better. We expected more, but we'll see. And then thirdly, we're looking at Vikings versus Saints. It should be a decent game, except for the Saints got a lot of injuries, including Jameson Winston, which just came out. He will be officially out, even though we're showing him as questionable. He has been announced out. So that means we get the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton. What has Andy Dalton done to the Vikings the last times he's played? Nothing but win. Is that a good thing for the Vikings? Or are the Vikings still looking to be out on top in this game across the pond? Find out shortly. Climb in the Pocket, Daily Norseman, and Lake Monster Brewing presents Two Old Bloggers. Yes, 2 old bloggers are here today to talk to you about the Minnesota Vikings in week 4. But first we start with week 3. And our first theme of the day, I want to say Skol to Mary and Skol to Purple Haze. Thank you for joining us. And the 12 others that are watching presently at this time, I know there'll be more building up. We can't wait. Now, let's switch scenes real quick. We titled this one, What's Wrong with Justin Jefferson? And we'll get into that. And there is a reason. I know out on Facebook, especially over at Daily Norseman, they said, nothing's wrong. Of course nothing's wrong. It's nothing but double teams. Everybody needs to step up. Nothing's wrong. Justin Jefferson's perfect. We'll tell you why. We'll give an example. And we'll tell it not from our mouths, but from a Pro Bowl safety who happens to know the reason why. But we'll get there first. First is theme 1. And why does that say theme 3? Because I hit the wrong one. Here we go. Theme 1.
No, we know it's theme 1, David.
Yes. And if I hit the right button, here we go. Vikings win over Detroit Lions, 28-24.
I almost got the score right, Aaron. Yeah, I almost got the score completely dead on. Last week I think it said 27-24 Vikings. They won 28-24. So not often that gets close. Game close, but yeah. but yeah, things were like you say, it was a scrappy game, a very worrying game for much of it. The Vikings escaped with the win, which would have been a very disheartening loss at home to the Lions.
Hmm.
We trailed by 14 points and 10 points at different points in the game. We trailed for most of the game, approximately 34 minutes. We were trailing. We only took the lead like with 45 seconds left in the game, and but somehow, we won. We're now 2-1, which is a lot better than 1-2. With a loss at home against the team that you've owned for 2 decades, basically. And I think, hats off to the Vikings on gutting it out there. But I think Dan Campbell, the guy Pat pictured here, we can also thank him for that victory and for deciding to go conservative at a spot where he'd been very aggressive, throughout the game. And that was on the 4th and 4 at the Vikings 36-yard line with like a minute 14 left in the game. Uh, Dan Campbell had been very aggressive throughout the game, and I felt that was something that kept the Vikings defense quite like, I don't know if it caught them off guard, but it was something that put pressure on them because
Hmm.
you couldn't just say, okay, we stopped them on 3rd down, they're going to punt or they're going to try a long field goal. No, like it was like, okay, maybe they actually are, maybe 3rd down isn't it. Like they're going to use that 4th down and try to convert. And they went 4 for 6 they were successful 4 for 6 on 4th down gambles in that game. And it wasn't just, and those 4th down and those four conversions on 4th down were important to them because they got it. One of them set up what should have been an easy 40-yard field goal for Austin Siebert. He doinks it off the right upright.
Hmm.
So that's 3 points that they should have got that they didn't get. uh, Two of the other first 4th down conversions resulted in their first 2 touchdowns in the game, and then on the fourth one led to a field goal by Siebert that gave them a 17-14 lead, like midway through the 3rd quarter. So their 4th down gambles resulted in 17 points that they wouldn't have got if they decided to like kick it away or try a field goal on 4th down. And so, but at 114 left in the game, the Vikings have no timeouts left. Uh, they're again at the Vikings 36-yard line. Dan Campbell, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, loses his balls, and he goes and he elects to have Austin Siebert, who is a bit shaky in the game. He elects to have him kick basically a long field goal in the same spot in the field at the same distance that Greg Joseph had missed twice already. And shanked it wide right. And the announcers were talking about how the windows were open at that end of the field, and they were thinking that was causing the field goals to go to the right. And if you After the game, there was admit the I guess the decision making odds, like
Hmm.
what was your the best decision. I saw it on there where they Dan Campbell made the wrong decision. Like electing to kick the field goal there gave the Lions the least probable chance to winning the game.
Hmm.
And if I was very happy when Campbell decides to go for it or to kick the field goal on 4th and 4 because I felt that they had a very good shot at converting on 4th and 4. I felt,
Hmm.
hey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though he wasn't as effective after he hurt his ankle in that
Right.
game, but still, I felt if they run like create a little bit of like a rub route, have another wide receiver coming sort of to get in the way of the guy who was covering him, which a lot of times was Chandon Sullivan, that would have created enough separation that Amon-Ra St. Brown would have got 4 yards easily there. Would have been 1st down, game over. Lions are 2-1 with their first road win since week 13 of 2020 when they beat the Bears. Instead, he again, he even if they didn't go for it there, Dave. Uh, unless they got sacked or an interception, even
Right.
if they don't go for it there, like probably the worst that's going to happen is they're going to turn the ball over on downs at the 36-yard line of the Vikings. They've burned a few more seconds off the clock, and the Vikings have a little bit longer to drive with a little less time to drive. And But again, he kicked the field goal. Instead, he kicks the field goal. Seabird misses it wide right. The Vikings get the ball at the 44-yard line. Like again, with over a minute to
Mm-hmm.
play, plenty of time to at least get a field goal to tie it, or try to win it with a touchdown, which they ended up doing in just 3 plays. Right, KJ and 2 catches, big catches by KJ Osborne. That's the end of the game. Again, you got to give the Vikings some credit. You got to give Kirk Cousins some credit for making the throws when he had to late in the game. You got to give KJ Osborne the credit for getting open, particularly that first catch he made. There wasn't a whole lot of separation there when he caught it, and he got quite a bit of extra yards after the catch by fighting and just not willing to go down. So credit to them, credit to the Vikings for being resilient and fighting through a game where they really didn't look like the better team a lot of the time. But I think Dan Campbell deserves a lot of the blame here too for making a decision that I think was dumb and really went against how he coached the game through the game, how he coached and how he went for it on how he approached fourth downs. Uh, you know, throughout the rest of the game. It was an odd, puzzling decision by me, but I'm glad that he made it.
Yep. Me
I don't
too.
know if you felt the same, David, but
I thought the same thing. It was because I fully expected him to go for it. It made sense to go for it. It was the right thing to do. At worst, you burn off some time, but you leave him further back. Yeah, you could have punted it and stuck him further back, but they were still motivated to drive. Um, but you go out there and kick a 50 or attempt, what was it, 53, and he misses, right? And it's not from the line of scrimmage, it's from where the ball was placed for the kicker.
yeah,
So you moved the Vikings closer. And
yep, a
that
whole
was
lot
just
closer.
a bad decision. Kirk Cousins did his thing. He gritted his teeth like he's showing here. He made the throws. He was the comeback king, the fourth quarter savant. He had actually a very, very good fourth quarter. And after some weird stuff early in the game where he sailed some footballs, which is unusual. And it was just, it, it was fun. It was fun to watch. I mean, it had everybody nervous. We all thought we were going to lose because they looked like they were playing that way. Defense wasn't as playing as well as we wanted. They did tighten up in the fourth quarter. No points. They've done that every game this season. Uh, the offense looked sort of wonky and out of whack. Now, they did get Dalvin Cook going, which I thought was wonderful. Unfortunately, that ended up with Dalvin Cook messing up his shoulder again, running into Ezra Cleveland, no less. But it was a good game. And then, when Dalvin went out, Matty came in. Alexander Madison had a great game for himself at that point, got his touchdown, and I think he's running better than we've seen him in his entire career at the Minnesota Vikings. It's got to be that, hey, it's a contract year thing, but he is doing so much better. I do want to say hi to Jonas Stark. Jonas is in London right now. He is our CTP Germany representative. He's made the trip over to London. He is going to watch the game. He has been sending pics from the Vikings bar in London of some people with some poor choices, i.e. there's at least one Packers fan there and at least one Saints fan that he sent pictures of. But it's going to be a fun game, and we're glad you're over there, Joseph, or Jonas. I hope to talk to you next week, and you can tell us about how the trip went. Now on to theme 2. Here we go. Kevin O'Connell. It's been 3 games. What do you think of Kevin O'Connell so far? What do you like? What do you dislike on how things are going?
Well, we'll see if people in the comments have their own thoughts on what they like and dislike. I hope that they do. I'm going to kind of get we're going to get into what we like or dislike, um, and I think you touched on it a little bit uh, on the offense last week looking a little clunky. And I think that overall in the first three games, the offense hasn't been as explosive as we were anticipating. And and they've had in all three games there's been multiple spots in those games where the Vikings have like had a lot of three and outs, empty offensive drives, not scoring points, not even converting on, having trouble even stringing together two first downs that they can get. And I think that they have looked, like I said, I think they've looked clunky. They look like they're just like they don't quite have the offense down. I don't know. Some people might say, "Oh, Kevin O'Connell," perhaps it's true that Kevin O'Connell is as an inexperienced play caller. He's not donning up the right plays all the time yet, and. And then, the other thing that might be the theory is that the Vikings offensive players just aren't quite comfortable yet in the offense and when what they are expected to do and what they need to do on those plays. But
And I think
uh,
it's probably more that because I've seen where Kirk's come up and he's actually moved people because they lined up in the wrong spot, right? And that has only happened, a few times, but it's still something to watch because it's like, hey, wait a minute, you guys should have this. You should be getting comfortable, and they are going to get comfortable. It's only week 3, and you got to remember, virtually all the starters had no play time during preseason. And it's one of those things where it's going to take longer for teams to get to where they are more proficient in their schemes and they look better. And it's just the way the NFL is today. It's because we don't have 6-week long preseasons, or 6 games in the preseason, or we don't have full contact in the preseasons. Other than the games, we don't have it in practice. It's taking players longer to get into that rhythm, and there's a reason for it. It's to try to keep down injuries, but we're going to see some clunky play. We've seen it across the league. Minnesota doesn't have the market on it. It's just, we hope
that's the
we
team we're
smooth
paying
it
the
out
most
quick.
attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now we're averaging 19.3 points per game, which is way down from the 25 we averaged last year when all of us were like calling for Clint Kubiak's job.
Uh-huh.
And again, that's an average, and it's only 3 games, right? So just because you've averaged 25 points a game doesn't mean that's the amount of points you're consistently getting. You could have a few games where you scored a bundle of points and a few where you didn't score very much. So it's always you got to always be careful about the averages of point per game and points given up.
Do you know what
But
it is
but
for the league so far?
I do not, David. But you're going to tell me, I bet.
It is 21 points.
Hmm.
That's it. It is the lowest it's been in over a decade.
The NFL and Roger Goodell is not going to like that.
No, they're going to be dialing up all sorts of defensive penalties to get the games going. That's going to be the fact. We're going to have emphasis on anything defense, penalty wise. They're going to try to get it going because it literally is the lowest it's been in over a decade at 21 points on average for the entire league. And that is crazy low, and especially in an offensive league. Now, can you say, well, it's because the era of the great quarterbacks is almost gone, right? It's fading. You have Tom Brady, you have Aaron Rodgers. That's about it from that generation. They're dropping off in their quality. Drew Brees is retired. Peyton Manning's gone. All the old guys are gone. So now you got a bunch of new rookies, and some may be as good as they are, but some may not. And it's just like, and they're wondering, hey, is it because the quarterbacks aren't so good? And I don't think it's so much as the quarterbacks aren't so good. I think it's partly what I said before. It's taking a while for the teams to get smooth, whether they've been in their systems or not, right? It's the way the league works nowadays. But it is over a decade, the low point. at 21 points across the league. So at 19.3, we're contributing to that, but we're not that far off the average. Do I want to be
And
above
I think
average? Oh, yes.
And I think that the offense will get better. It has to if this
Mm-hmm.
team is going to go where we want it to go. But certainly it hasn't been like a smooth transition early on with the new offense. That also is true with the Vikings defense, which has, even though their, again, averages point per games, got to worry about, you got to be careful about that. But that off, our defense is only giving up an average of 18.3 per game, which that sounds pretty good. That's ninth overall, really, in the NFL right now. But I'm still concerned about the pass rush, or the lack of it, that I've seen, particularly the last two games. The Vikings have 7 sacks as a team so far, and that's like 20th in the league. But more than the sacks, and you bring this up all the time, Dave, is the total pressures that they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not seeing, the pressure, the consistent pressure that I would like to see. Zadarius Smith and Daniil Hunter have not been wreaking the kind of havoc on the quarterback that I was expecting. I think were expecting,
Uh-huh.
and um, I think that, particularly the last two games, Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff had lots of time to throw and pick and pick apart our defense, and they did in a lot of cases. And the run defense has also been subpar,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's tied to the problems on pass defense and the lack of a pass rush, because if you can't get teams into third and long,
Uh-huh.
then uh, quarterbacks can't get them into third and long because you didn't do a good job stopping the run early on. Then quarterbacks don't have to hold on to the ball very long, and they can get the ball out quickly and still have a good opportunity of getting that first down, because they don't have a whole lot of yards to get. And Aaron brought it up there as well, like Ed Donatel in our photo here right now.
Uh-huh.
Um, you've got concerns, I've got concerns. Like, it seems like it's very, he's running very simple stuff. Rush four guys, play zone
Yes.
coverage most of the time. The offenses seem to have got it figured out right from the get go, how to attack that defense.
How to attack those zone
And
coverages? Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not so, like, where's the confusion, where's the variety, where's the multiple looks, where's the games on the pass rushes? Like, as a fan, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing our defense create confusion or panic on opposing offenses. They look very comfortable attacking this defense, and it's worrying. Like, Dave, you were talking about how, offline, about how, or we both were, about how Zimmer, even though we were complaining about his defense last 2 years, but when it came to dialing up pressures
He
and
was good
causing
at it.
confusion, he's good. He was good at it, and a lot more inventive than what we've seen from Ed Donatel so far.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Vikings were one of the top teams in sacks last year, and what good did that get them? So they still had a terrible defense most of the time. But I think the defense right now, again, new system, 3-4. Much like the offense, probably we've got to give them a little bit some time too,
Uh-huh.
and the players time to get used to that scheme. They might not be completely 100% sure where they need to be all the time, or what techniques they need to be using. But the defense has not been playing, I think, as well as we'd hoped.
Well, and for
So
example, Daniil Hunter's gone against two very, very, very good right tackles. So
yes,
he's had competition. But I brought up the PFF numbers. Uh, Total pressure so far are 28 in 3 games. So a little less than 10, right? A little over 9 a game. The most is Darius Smith with 10. Second is Dalvin Tomlinson with 5. Then comes DJ Wanham and Daniil Hunter with 4. Now, if you think of 2019, when Zadarius and Hunter both had over 100, and that was a 16-game season, you're looking at, they were getting at least 7 pressures a game, and only Z is there after 3 games. There's there is a problem. There is not the production we anticipated. Hopefully it picks up, but it's not there yet.
It isn't there yet, and so those are the things that are concerning. I think we share that with a lot of Vikings fans. Well, but that same defense that I was just complaining about, of course, we haven't given up any points in the fourth quarter yet, which is
Or
awesome.
in any of the
Uh,
final 2 minutes.
yeah, and that was a big problem under Mike Zimmer the last few years that we wanted to see
Huge.
cleaned up. And so far, Ed Donatel and his coaching staff and the players have cleaned that up so far in 3 games. But I feel though, Dave, it's just a feeling of mine that right now that's kind of a fluky, coincidental thing that may not mean much over 17 games, and that's going to that we're going to regress. But I hope not. But that is one really good thing, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the year to see if the Vikings defense continues to be strong in the fourth quarter and end of half situations like they weren't in 2021 and 2020.
I
The
do want to see
other
these
Go
guys
ahead,
pick
Dave.
up their production.
Yes, and unfortunately, well, I won't. People know, but Zadarius Smith, his availability tomorrow
Questionable.
is doubtful. Yeah, yeah,
Or
doubtful.
doubt. Is it
But
doubtful? I got to look.
yeah,
But we'll
yeah,
get to that.
but yeah, we will. So Ed Donatel, some good things, some not so good things early on in his career as a Viking defensive coordinator. One of the other good things that uh, I've noticed, and is that, and one of the questions I had coming into the season was, how would Kevin O'Connell approach end of half situations? Would the Vikings be better in those situations than they were again under Mike Zimmer the last 2 years, where the Vikings 2 minute offense always seemed to be like, uh, it was a clown show out there. They weren't really sure. Like it didn't seem there wasn't much urgency a lot of times. They didn't seem to know what they were doing. A lot of flat end of half drives
Mm-hmm.
going into halftime, and also at the end of the game. Well, Kevin Seifert, pictured up there, did a story on this week in ESPN, and he ran the numbers, and the numbers should be very pleasing to Viking fans about how Kevin O'Connell has approached the last 2 minutes before halftime so far this game. And you've got a quote up there. Not sure where that's coming from, but
It's from
but
Kevin Seifert.
yeah, but here are some of the numbers that Seifert brought up. At the end of halftime, last 2 minutes of the game so far through 3 games, the Vikings have scored 2 touchdowns.
Uh-huh.
That's tied for the most in the league. They've got the fourth most offensive plays in the 2 minutes before halftime, and have accumulated the second most yards, 110, at the end of halftime. And they're also passing the ball like most of the time in those situations. I think 11 pass plays out of 16 plays. So I like that approach with O'Connell. That's an aggressive approach. It shows that he gets the ball. He values the last 2 minutes as an opportunity to score points, not just to milk a lead or to play it safe, but he is going for points, and he feels that that's a very, very important turning point in the game, is to get points at the end of half, particularly if you're going to also get the ball to start the second half.
That's where
That
this quote comes from. Kevin O'Connell talked about the middle eight. That's why I have it highlighted down there. The middle eight, he learned from Bill Belichick when he was, the backup to Tom Brady. The middle eight being so important. The whole idea is that on opening coin flip, if you win it, always defer. Always, always, always. So don't expect anything more or anything else other than we'll always defer if the Vikings win the toss. The whole idea is to get the ball in that final 4 minutes of the first half, drive down the field, keeping the opponent's offense off the field, score, go into halftime, and then come out and get the ball in the second half, drive down the field, score, right? It's back-to-back scores. We used to call it double dipping. It's wonderful. It's great psychologically. But there's also another thing Phil Mackey was talking about. What's so nice about this is 4 minutes of game time at the end of the quarter can last 10 minutes, right? On the clock, on a real clock. Then you have 12 minutes for the halftime. And then you have 4 minutes on the other side. And you can come up to easily 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how things go, where if you're on the field at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half, the opposing offense is off the field that long, right? And they get out of sync. They get all, hey, I haven't touched the football in an hour or a half an hour,
Just
right? And
sitting on their butts for that whole time.
Right, and they get all out of whack. And that's an advantage. And that's Bill Belichick was the one that recognized that years ago. That's why he's one of the greatest coaches ever. But they call it the middle eight. 4 minutes on one end, 4 minutes on the other, and then the halftime in the middle. And that they want that because it is a strategic advantage. And Kevin O'Connell is the one that specifically talked about it this week, that is something that they are targeting. I like that thinking. That is very strategic. I like that about Kevin O'Connell. That will do us good in the long run. It is good to see. That's why that was up there. And it came out of, and Seifert touched on it.
Mm-hmm. And the middle eight, Kevin O'Connell mentioning that. I read that article too, and he was talking about how that's in the quote too, about things can happen catastrophically, and you don't have a whole lot to do with it except for the one decision you made, which was, yes, I'm going to take the kickoff. When we'll receive to start the game. No. Bill Belichick is like, no, we won't receive. We'll let them receive. And Kevin O'Connell is doing the same thing. So. Usually a pretty good idea in a lot of cases to listen to follow what Bill Belichick does. A lot of football matters. So that's a good thing. How the Vikings offense is functioning at the last 2 minutes or so before halftime, encouraging. Again, another thing. 3 games in, we'll see if that holds up throughout the season. But right now, they're doing very well on it. The last thing I wanted to mention, as far as what's encouraging, has to do with surprise, the Vikings offensive line. Not only does it look like we might actually have a line that's better, those guys better than a competent unit. We might actually get one that's a pretty good unit the way things are going on. And through 3 games, at least through my eye test, David, Kirk Cousins has had plenty of time to throw the ball. The results haven't always been what we would like, particularly in the Philly game, but he's had time to throw the ball. He's had a pretty clean pocket, hasn't been under much duress, and he's only been sacked 4 times. And a couple of those sacks were like he held onto the ball for like 15 seconds. It was just kind of like eventually the pass rush got to him. It was more of a coverage sack than anything that the offensive line did, I felt. But if you don't believe the eye test, then Mary, good point about fewer penalties. Merlin is.
I heard some noise.
Yes, dogs are like that. Mine's just as bad. But ESPN published some of its pass and run blocking analytics stats this week, and several, quite a few, 3 Vikings offensive linemen found themselves on the top 10 in a good way in those. Brian O'Neill, number 75, he was rated as the number one tackle right now in pass block win rate. Number one. A Viking offensive lineman, number 1 in something. That isn't bad. That's awesome. But he was also, and then in their run block win rate, Christian Darrisaw was 4th, and O'Neill was 7th. So we have both of our tackles top 10 in run block win rate. And then even the much maligned Garrett Bradbury, our center, was ranked ninth in run block win rate so far, according to ESPN. So that's three, count them, three Viking offensive linemen in the top 10 in either a pass block win rate or a run block win rate stats, according to ESPN. And even Ezra Cleveland, he didn't make the top 10 in the guards for either pass block or run block win rate. But I feel, anyway, again, I think he's been really solid through 3 games so far. David, I don't know how you feel about that,
No, I fully
I know
agree.
you like Ezra.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
His overall offensive grade so far, average for the 3 games is 68.7. His run blocking is at 71.8. That is outstanding. His pass blocking could use a little help, but I'm half convinced that part of that is because both he and Ed Ingram are helping Bradbury. And they may sacrifice a little bit there. They're playing a lot of wall where at least the three of them, if not a whole side, will block off a side. And and if somebody gets through, it's usually around the guys on the end, which happens to be the guards, because they are helping Bradbury in the middle to make sure nobody gets through that way. I do like the way they're playing. He's playing solid. He's shown some times where he's just buried people. I love that attitude. He gets better and better. It's only his second season over here on left guard, and his third season playing. And of course, he was a tackle. I can't be more happy with Ezra. The only person I'm just about as happy with is your next guy you want to talk about. This guy.
Yeah, I would think Ed Ingram would be like the weak link of the offensive line so far. But if you look at PFF grades, but there's been all kinds of snaps that you can highlight in the 3 games where Ingram is just burying guys, mauling defensive lineman on run, particularly I think on the run blocking stuff, where he's looked really, really good. Yeah, there's been some missteps. He's given up some pressures. Kind of the thing where he's getting some of his rookie inexperience is being taken advantage of by experienced vets who've got several pass rushing moves that they can throw at him. But I feel like the good that I'm seeing shows me that once he smooths out the rough edges, gets more experience, Ed Ingram is going to be a very good player for us. And I think that it may come even as early as middle of this season, later this season, after he's got enough reps under his belt. But overall, I think this Vikings offensive line. Yes, David,
I was gonna hype in on Ed Ingram.
Yes, please do.
Grades. Ed Ingram is better than Olive Udo last year, score-wise. After 3 games, his scores, his grades are higher than Oli Udo's last year. They're higher, by far, than Drew Samia the year before. We're talking all the snaps these guys take. They're higher than Dakota Dozier in 2019. They're lower, pardon me. The only one they're lower than was Mike Remmers back in 18. But they are getting there. They're close to what Mike Remmers gave us then. So, if only after 3 games you're beating the guys that are were there, starting over the last few years, and you're close to the one that started 4 years ago, that was a veteran that was brought to the team, obviously as a tackle, but moved to guard, then you're doing damn good. And he's going to do nothing but improve. I haven't seen him make the same mistake twice. He is improving. And he is helping Bradbury. They've already said it. I've heard it numerous times that he and Ezra are helping Bradbury. And that may sacrifice some of their own play. But overall, it's we're better. The old line is much, much better. So it is what it is. And we've
Yeah, I
got
feel that.
some good communications going on in the comments, including folks from New Orleans. Glad you could join us. Should be fun. And Dwatson, I'm curious. You posted that Tua's done with his career. Did that break out while we're on the air? I haven't seen it. So,
I have not either.
If it is,
I think that all of this offensive line stuff, David. I feel that with now the Vikings have invested quite heavily in the offensive line the past 3-4 years. All of those guys on the offensive line now are first or second round draft picks. So we would expect them to gel eventually and become a very good offensive line. But I feel that the way things are trending with this unit right now, that this could be the best offensive line the Vikings have had since the guys that you're picturing down there, the 2009 Vikings offensive line with Loadholt, Anthony Herrera, John Sullivan at center, Steve Hutchison at right guard, and Bryant Mountain McKinney at left guard. Like their 2009 grades, you showed them to me yesterday, and it was really, 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 really like, some impressive PFF grades. Yeah, nothing that we've seen in recent memory for the
Steve
Vikings
Hutchinson led
line.
in pass blocking with 82.2. Second was Bryant McKinney at 79.5. Third was Jimmy Kleinsaucer, who's right there on the edge in this graphic, at 78.3. Then it comes to John Sullivan, your center, at 77.4. And as I pointed out to Tyler Fornes today, look at the tree trunks that support John Sullivan. John Sullivan wasn't the biggest center in the world, but look where he is distributed. Those things are ginormous. And it went all the way down. Pass blocking for Phil Loadholt, the right tackle, was the lowest of the bunch. And it was a 71.5 grade. I'm sorry. When you've got 5 guys in the offensive line, throw in Jimmy Kleinsaucer as the 8th, and they're running between 71.5 and 82.2. Holy shit. That is good. That is, you can't find a line across the board, I bet, in the league that ranks that high. Run blocking is also very good, and overall offense is also very good. It's just, those guys were beasts. And if our guys get close to that, we're going to be in heaven, folks. That would be wonderful. But it's 2009.
Wayne.
That's how long. Hey, Quang, where you been, buddy? Hope you're doing well.
Long time no see, indeed. Must have been over a year.
Mm-hmm. Now, this one was I put up there for. You said it also makes me feel good about the chances of the offense reaching the potential under Kevin O'Connell.
Well, sure, because if we've got an offensive line that pass blocks well, run blocks well, then that's got to help settle Kirk Cousins down, even in games where he's on the road in a pressure-packed game. If he's got an offensive line that can open up running holes for Cook and Madison and whoever's in there, keep us out of 3rd and long, and keep Cousins in a security blanket, a bubble wrap around him when he's going to pass. I think that as the year goes on, that is going to lead to more success.
Better and better and better. Mm-hmm.
Especially as guys, the skill position in particular, again, they know where they're going, what they're doing in the offense. Matthew, school from Montreal. Indeed.
What a great avatar.
Yes, yeah. Queen Lizzie in the Randy Moss jersey. But yeah, I did. If the offensive line is clicking,
that's Quang. 10 months. It's been too long time. We missed you.
Too long. Welcome back. So offensive line, if we get a competent to good to very good offensive line, there's no way that this offense can't be the explosive can't be the explosive offense we were expecting at the beginning of the year that we haven't quite seen yet, but we're hoping to see it starting this Sunday.
This Sunday. And we saw a little bit more. What I do like about the Detroit game, to double back on that, is that once Justin Jefferson was basically relatively ineffective because the way the Detroit played him and the way he played, they started throwing to Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne, and the running game got picked up. And we need to see more of that. We need that nice, well-rounded. They talk about a person being nice and well-rounded. They did in the Air Force. You've got to be a well-rounded airman to be promoted. And it's like, I thought I had to be good at fixing airplanes. Anyways, it's but an offense that's well-rounded is very good as well, and they're getting there. So I'm happy with that. That brings us to my favorite part of the show, where we talk about beer. Lake Monster Brewing is our partner, has been for a while now. They make fantastic beer. They're based out of St. Paul, Minnesota, just across the river from Minneapolis. Last week they featured the Lunatic Fresh Hop Ale, which looks great. This week they are featuring the Pomegranate Hibiscus Sour. And with that, you have as they wrote, a flavor combination that makes sense. Crisp wheat ale infused with hibiscus flower and pomegranate. This sounds very hippie-ish to me. Maybe Aaron Rodgers would like it. But it actually sounds good. If you like sour ales, and I need to try more of them, this sounds good. It says on tap and in can for limited time only. And they're prepping for something that's coming up. What's on tap is the same as last week. We have the pomegranate, the lunatic, the golden lotus, which I would really like to try, and the oatmeal stout, along with your normal favorites. And of course, it's Oktoberfest time. Gotta have some good Oktoberfest. And then there's the Monster Bash on the 29th. Live music from 1 o'clock into the evenings. Partner with 83.9 The Current. They are going to have a party there celebrating the Halloween festivities called the Monster Bash. There's all sorts of cool beers coming up. There's the Cask Cave, where 8 one-of-a-kind specialty beers will be brewed and pulled out, and your hot apple cider that Tyler loves so absolutely much, and much, much more. That is our partners, Lake Monster. If you love a great beer, you're in the area, stop by the brew house. If you're in the viewing area, you should be able to find stuff in cans at your local places that you buy beer. So I would suggest doing it. It's a great thing. Now on to theme 3. This is where we're getting into the game. The Vikings at the Saints in London. And this is where we're going to hit up on the big question of the day. What's wrong with Justin Jefferson? We'll find out. First, we're going over the normal status slides, injury reports for the Vikings. You have Andrew Booth. He's getting closer. He's not out. He's just doubtful, which means he'll be out. Yeah. Zadarius Smith is questionable. Zadarius Smith took a hit to his knee or bent his knee weird in the last 5 minutes of the game last week, and they had a compressor bandage on it. He's been limited all week, but he is questionable. Since he's been limited, I expect him to play. I think he's going to want to play, but we'll see how that goes. For the Saints, as of right now, Marcus May is out, the strong safety. Guard Andrus Peat is out, and there's been a lot of stuff on Twitter that Wyatt Davis will be starting. No, Wyatt Davis is not going to be starting. I was talking to Matthew Culler about that. I said that brings fears to the Vikings that he's going to come out there, start, and be the best guard that's ever played football, laced up his cleats, and a surefire Hall of Famer. No, that's not going to happen. Chill out. He's not going to start. Don't worry about it. Wide receiver Michael Thomas is out, so that limits who Andy Dalton can throw to. Jameis Winston, just before the show was announced, he is officially out. He was doubtful. He's officially out for the game. And our defensive backs are probably a little disappointed. They were hoping to pad their interception statistics because Jameis Winston, last time he was in London, threw 6 of them. Alvin Kamara is questionable. I suspect he'll play. And wide receiver Jarvis Landry is also questionable. He is a big part of their game as well. I expect all the questionables on this list to play, but who knows? We get into our offense versus defense. We now have 3 weeks of data, so the data is getting better. It's still small sample size, but it's getting better. The Vikings have gone up on their offensive numbers, just barely. Pardon me. Olavi out to run P2 easy. I worry about that too. I've got them coming up. Don't worry. Offense for PFF is ranked 10th power ranking versus the Detroit defense is supposedly 10th for PFF. Football Outsiders basically agrees. They have us at 11th and the defense for the Saints at the 10th. So it's going to be a decent matchup there. We're 15th in pass and 3 in run. That's thanks to Dalvin Cook having a good day and then Matty coming in afterwards and relieving him. Elias, stop that. I hate when I do that. Has us at 18th in yards versus 13th against for the Saints. 15th in passing, 19th rushing, 16th in points. We went up a little bit. We've only given up 4 sacks all season, which is low. Kirk Cousins should be happy about that. And turnovers, we've had 4. However, the defense, where I put the differentials for the Saints, has a -6. So the Saints have given 6 more than they've taken. They do have 3 takeaways. You get down there in the bottom, the line yesterday, the day before when I made this slide was 2.5. It's 2.5 to 3, somewhere in there. Over and under is 43.5, which is a relatively low scoring game. We'll see about that. Rock and Rolf, I'm not surprised Z is being doubtful. I'm showing him as questionable, not doubtful. We get in.
But you didn't practice much all week.
No. We get into, and that could be swelling. You have no idea with a knee, but it's obviously not major knee because they only put a compression on it, compression wrap. That's not major. It's just maybe swelling of some sort, water. Who knows? When we flip on to the other side, Vikings defense is 20th, but moving up. Saints is 23rd. So their offense is 23rd. You've got a bunch of guys out on offense, so we'll see. Football Outsiders has them roughly about the same. Overall, Vikings defense at 25th, moving up. And Saints offense at 26. So, we're talking bottom quarter. When it comes to Elias, total yards, our defense has given up. They have us at rank 30th, which is we're giving up too much yards. However, when it comes down to points, we'll passing, and rushing. Comes down to points, they have us as 10th. Whereas the offense totals over on the Saints they have 8th overall, 8th for yards, 8th for passing, 16th for rushing, and 23rd on points. They're not producing. They may be marching down the field, but they're not producing. Sacks.
That has a lot to do with Sir Jameis.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Giving away the ball. Sacks, the Vikings have had 7 so far. The Saints offense has given up 11. So it may be a good day for that defensive line of ours to rack up some sacks. However, I think Andy Dalton will be getting rid of the ball quickly. We have a 0 differential on the plus and minus turnovers. The Saints offense has given up 9 turnovers on their end, and when it comes to takeaways, we've had 4. That is your basics. Offense, defense. We get into special teams. Special teams, we dropped a little bit because Joseph missed 2 field goals last week. We're now ranked 20 overall, but DVOA has, the Football Outsiders has the Saints special teams is dead last. Shaq Johnson, no, you haven't. We're getting there. I've been teasing it all week. It happens to be part of the next subject. Justin Jefferson. This leads to the question, what's wrong with Justin Jefferson?
Well, we wanted to talk about Justin Jefferson because I think, as always, for the preview section, because I think that if as Justin Jefferson goes, this Vikings offense probably goes as well. And first week against that team from Wisconsin, had a monster game. So we're all thinking, yes, all this talk from training camp about him being uncoverable, all the talk about him wanting to be the number 1 receiver, considered the best receiver in the NFL, it's all coming to fruition. But then the last 2 weeks, not so much. And last week against the Detroit Lions, with Jeff Okudah being the main guy covering him, he had 3 catches for 14 yards. The 14 yards is the least he's had in his 3 years in the league, and that's going to lead to questions, David. Like you said, what's wrong with Justin Jefferson? Like,
And
is
this
he
picture here
injured?
was taken from the last game. This was his drop.
Yeah.
And he's had drops.
Well,
he
yeah.
had drops the last 2 games as well.
He said, yeah, he had drops. I didn't like his body language at times. He looked like he was frustrated and maybe not giving a full 100% effort on some of those passes where he was tightly covered. And that's not the Justin Jefferson I'm used to seeing. But yeah, is there something wrong with Justin Jefferson? Is has the league figured him out? Is Kevin O'Connell running the right kind of plays to get him loose? And scheme him open like the Rams did with Sean McVay with Cooper Kupp. Those are the questions people are asking now. I think they're legitimate questions, but I'm not personally, and I think most Viking fans aren't. I'm not worried about Justin Jefferson really. Every player has some down games. Tom Brady has them. Davante Adams has them. Aaron Rodgers had one 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers had one 3 weeks ago. It happens, right?
I like when he has
but
them.
Yes, so do I. And I'm gonna I like it when Tom Brady and Davante Adams had them too, especially when Adams was with that team from Wisconsin. But still, what's up? 2 games, not Justin Jefferson numbers at all.
Well, and I'll tell you the numbers. First game, he had 10 targets, 9 receptions, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. Right? Fantastic game. Especially against that team from Wisconsin. Second game, against the Eagles, he was matched up well. He's matched up against Darius Slay. We'll talk about him here momentarily. Darius Slay's a Pro Bowl safety, knows what he's doing, right? But he had 12 targets. He had 6 receptions for 48 yards. And he had his QB rate was a lot lower. The first one, it was 153.3. Against the Eagles, it was dropped to 20.8 because of the interceptions. Then we get into Detroit. Detroit, he was only targeted 5 times. 5. Caught 3 of them. Dropped 1, right? And he only had the 14 yards, which is terrible. but he at least had a rating of 64.6. He was better, and it was working better. And we ask, well, why has this gone down? The normal reasons are Dave, he's double covered all the time. Dave, he's triple covered. Dave, they weren't throwing Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne. All those are correct. But they aren't the exact reason why Justin Jefferson has had that bad game, and it started in Philly. And I think it's messed with his head. And do you know why that is? We found out this week.
I do, David. Well, it certainly part of the reason, David, you shared with me that Patrick Peterson on his All Things Covered podcast had certain Mr. Slay on this week. And he asked, Patrick Peterson, of course, asked Darius Slay, so, how are you able to have such a great game against one of the best wide receivers in the NFL? And
let's
and
listen
remember,
to it. I've got the clip.
Let's listen.
What allowed you a few weeks ago to have such an elite performance against one of the best wide receivers in the game in Justin Jefferson, Monday Night Football, Week 2?
Man, young guy, man. When you're a young and talented guy, you believe everything works. It was not a talent issue with him being him a better talent. It's just that I played this game so long. I know what you go do. I know your tendencies. I know what you like the most. So he had a lot of tells for me to steal from on film that I guess, young guys don't see, but I see because I like to watch film a lot. So every tell I did, it was truthful. So after the first PBU I made on him, it made me really confirm that that's what he does. So then when I confirm something that early, it's gonna be a long night for anybody. No matter what kind of talent you is, how much better you feel like you're much better than you is than me. That means I already got your tell on what you do. So I really just believe what I watched on film and watch how his releases, or when I was off man, how he'd try to attack me off man, I believed everything. So that's why I made the plays I did.
I want to thank Darius Slay and his interview on Patrick Peterson and BMAC on All Things Covered for providing that clip. I think that nails it. He had a lot of tells to steal from. What is a tell, Darren?
Well, a tell is like a tendency, something that tips off to your opponent what you're going to do in certain situations, and or in all situations, really. It's something that smart players look at through film study, breaking down video. You hear it all the time in baseball. It's been talked about for years how a pitcher is tipping off the pitches. So in baseball, so hitters are after watching a pitcher pitch over a whole season or multiple seasons, they get a rundown. Like they can tell, a pitcher will hold the ball, or you'll see him sometimes. They'll be holding the ball or moving their glove around a certain way if they throw a curve or a split fingered fastball, or the arm angle is different on a fastball compared to a curve, or maybe they move their body, maybe they go to their cap, do some funny things that they're not even aware of. But all of these things are data that opposing players look at, they notice from after time, and that tips off what a pitcher is going to throw. And then if the hitter knows what's coming, they got a better chance of hitting the ball hard. Same in any sport. So same if you're covering a wide receiver. In this case, Darius Slay must be seeing, in a certain situation, Justin Jefferson is dipping his shoulder a little bit when he's going to do this route, or he's moving his head a certain way when he's going to go do an in route, or it's all things that Justin
go certain ways, or he drops a hand, or there's all sorts of things. There's people think of tells in poker. When the guy picks up his hands and suddenly his eye starts twitching, right?
Yeah.
That's an obvious tell, but there's less obvious tells. I've always taught when coaching football, mainly because I deal with the linemen, look how their hand is on the turf. Is there weight on the hand? Are their fingers, pressed into it? Is it light, right? There's also, look at their butt. Is their butt up, right? If their butt's up versus their head, they're in a run blocking tendency. If their butt is sat back down, they're most likely pass blocking. It's stuff you can watch. The foot. Watch how on some linemen or players period. They'll take, if they're right-handed, their right foot, and they'll sort of dig in with their cleat. They'll swivel around the ball of their foot with their cleats, right? Pitchers, you talked about baseball, do that as well, right? It's to get that extra grip. They may not know they're doing it. They may not be conscious of it. And that's the problem. Darius Slay studied the film and saw something that tipped him off, saw Justin Jefferson's tells that this is telling me if, say, Slay was in a back pedal and Justin Jefferson did something, Slay knew he was braking, to his left or to his right, or he's going behind. So he knew what to do. He could sit there. If he knew that, he could start to swivel his hips already. And Justin had basically already committed already and couldn't, come behind. So those tells, this is where Justin needs to get better. And we talked about it.
And
I'm going to this.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that this week and the past week that particularly, I'm sure after the podcast, Patrick Peterson goes to Justin Jefferson and says, "Hey, man, I don't know if you heard my podcast this week, but this is what Darius Slay said about you. And so it's time for you to do some self-scouting right now with Keenan McCardell, your wide receiver coach. See if you can pick up things that you're doing, little subtle things that you're not aware of that are tipping off the routes that you're running, because this, Slay knew what you're going to do before you did."
Right.
And perhaps Jeff Okudah and the Detroit Lions also picked up on it because they did an even better job on Justin Jefferson. So if Justin Jefferson, it's not just about, although I think Kevin O'Connell could be doing a better job, like bunching up wide receivers and creating getting some bodies in front of Jefferson to create some separation with the guy he's covering, so Jefferson can at least get some touches with a little bit of running room and do some yards after the catch to get him going. But it's not just it's just as much on Justin Jefferson, it sounds like, as getting out of this funk as it is on the Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings offensive coaching staff, and it all has to do with the tells. Justin Jefferson has got to figure out how to eliminate these tells, subtle things that he's doing that's tipping off what he's doing, and that way, if he can do that, well, then the Vikings offense, I think, is going to be much more effective, because this Vikings offense is not going to get to the explosive, high-scoring, high-octane offense we expect to see, unless Justin Jefferson is rocking and rolling.
Yep, and I agree. I want to hit RB29 Oilers. You're correct. If Dalton's throwing quick passes, that's going to be a problem. Hopefully it's not, but we'll see how it goes. I think our defense can do well.
And Justin Jefferson, if he's getting, sorry, I'm chewing ice here, but Justin Jefferson, if he's getting 7 or 8 catches for over 100 yards, that's going to be very helpful to the Vikings beating the Saints tomorrow morning in London, because the offense just isn't the same if Justin Jefferson is eliminated from the mix. It just is.
Right. And like we said, we tease this. I've teased this all day. Justin Jefferson is very good, right? The double and triple teamings do contribute. The not using the rest of the team's weapons until they started to last week is also a contributor. But if Justin Jefferson and all great football players, whether at wide receiver, lineman, wherever position, they try to learn other players' tells, so it helps them, and they try to eliminate their own. So I think this week, especially when it got blasted, I guarantee you NFL cornerbacks listen to that podcast, because it's about defensive backs. That they're going to have to be working on that consciously, and I think he'll get it. He's just too good not to. He'll put in.
But it doesn't get any easier, because I'm assuming this week, because I'm pretty sure that Marshawn Lattimore is going to be shadowing Justin Jefferson most if not all of the time. So, and Lattimore is a very, very, very good corner. gives wide receivers all kinds of problems. So another big test for Jefferson and the Vikings offense today.
RB29, we'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah, so Justin Jefferson, got to get him right. Got to get him going tomorrow. If the Vikings want to, I think that's one of the keys to beating the Saints and beating and being productive against a very good defense. Dalvin RB Oilers. Yes, Dalvin Cook. We know that he's been cleared to play. That is very good news because he was very effective last week. The offensive line had a lot to do with that, but it was a nice bounce back game for him after having one of the worst games I've ever seen him have as a Viking against the Eagles, where he got nothing going with the running game. So, but the issue, of course, is that he hurt his left shoulder against the Lions. He's had shoulder problems in previous years. Apparently, he's got a labrum issue that he didn't get operated on, and so that seems like it's kind of like a nagging chronic thing for him. It's quite possible for a guy who touches the ball 20 plus times a game usually that he could land on that shoulder. He's definitely not 100%. That's for sure. But he has a high tolerance for pain. We know that because he's played with harnesses before and played the whole game. But if he lands on that shoulder wrong on a tackle, during one of his touches, he could be gone, in which case Alexander Mattison comes in. We'll see if Kevin O'Connell mixes up, distributes the run carries a little bit more evenly between Mattison and Cook, because Cook's not 100% this week, or that would seem to be one way to ensure that Cook plays the whole game this game and also is ready to play in the following weeks and doesn't re-aggravate the injury or make it even more serious.
I like my idea of shoulder armor.
Yeah. Whatever they got to do, though, I think Dalvin Cook. It's good that he's playing, but we do need him to be playing the vast majority of the game and being effective doing so, because just like with Justin Jefferson, this Vikings offense is not the same when you got Alexander Mattison in there as when you've got Dalvin Cook, because that takes away, without Cook, it takes away the big home run hitting ability that Cook has.
Yes,
that we have not seen yet this year.
Alexander is a stud.
Yeah,
and he could very well take over this game, but Dalvin Cook's always had that home run capability, where Alexander Mattison generally has not. He'll get you good runs, but it's never that hand off at the 5 and suddenly he breaks it and he's gone. With Mattison, Madison's longest runs are maybe 25, 30 yards. Now, but you rack up tons of those and they're good.
I think Matty being called a stud is a bit bullish. I think he's a good back, solid back, but not a stud.
And he's having his best season yet. And the way he got into the end zone last week, I just love it. The power, the will, because it was pure will.
That was a hell of a run. That was a hell of a run for sure. And I have confidence with him if he has to be the main guy, but you just got to understand that the explosive runs probably aren't going to be there. It's going to be like 3 yards here, 4 yards here, 5 yards here, occasionally a 10-yarder, but it's going to be a lot of meat and potatoes, and you're not going to get the 80-yard run that you could get with the Cooker in there.
Yep.
But having Cook in there, that's a plus. And with the way he ran last week, let's just hope he can remain healthy in this game against the Saints defense that's good and is aggressive and hits hard. We talked about in the injuries, they are banged up. Michael Thomas not playing is a big loss for them, but Chris Olave has been very good as a rookie. Jarvis Landry he's a good wide receiver, but he's a position guy. He's not a deep threat, but he's a guy that got to be accounted for. But the big thing here is Jameis Winston is not playing. Normally, when your starting quarterback is out, that is very, very good news for the opposing team. But in this case, is it? Because Jameis Winston, the Saints have really struggled to score points this year. You saw they're getting yards, but they haven't been able to score a whole lot. He's gotten 5 interceptions so far when he's played. He's been sacked 11 times. That's a lot. His quarterback rating and his QBR rating are all 26th in the league. So that's not good. And Jameis Winston, David, is a guy who he likes to push the ball down the field. He likes to throw into tight windows. He likes to take chances. He also, because he does those things, he turns the ball over more than most quarterbacks do. And because he likes to throw longer passes and throw the ball into tight windows, he holds onto the ball longer than most quarterbacks do, which lead to the sacks. And the tight windows and risky throws lead, and he's also not, his accuracy is waxes and wanes too. So he's not the most accurate passer in the league. So all those things lead to more turnover opportunities. Well, Andy Dalton is the exact opposite of that. Yeah, the Red Rocket. Well, he is not a risk taker at quarterback. He's going to get the ball out quickly. He's going to get the ball out quickly. So he's not going to hold the ball on long. He's going to get the ball out quickly. He's quite happy to get the check down. So and the one thing about the Red Rocket, he's not a guy that's going to scare anybody, but he's a guy that, whereas Alvin Kamara, very good running back, he always generally has very good games against the Vikings. We all remember his 5 TD or 6 TD in 2020.
2 years ago, yeah.
But so far in the games he's played this year, Winston has not involved him at all in the passing game. And this guy is one of the best pass catching running backs in the league. He only has like 5 catches so far for 19 yards with Winston at his QB. This Kamara is a guy he caught at least 80 passes in his first 4 seasons in the NFL. So I believe that with Thomas out, Dalton is going to be as a guy that's actually going to get Kamara more involved with the screen passes in the passing game. He's going to be content to check down to him and going to let Kamara get the ball into his hands and let him make tacklers miss, or scoot off those tackles that he's so good at and drives you crazy because you think you got him tackled but you don't. So the Vikings defense has to be ready for a very different offense the Saints are going to run with Andy Dalton at quarterback than with Jameis Winston at quarterback. And it actually might be a more effective offense with Andy Dalton running it than with Jameis Winston running it, which we don't want, which is why I would prefer if Winston was actually playing tomorrow as opposed to Andy Dalton. And I think you had the same views on that.
Yeah.
I think so. Dalton starting, that's a big development in this game and might not be a positive development for Viking fans. Defensively, the Saints, Dennis Allen, he's turned the Saints into since he's joined the Saints in 2015 as a defensive coordinator. He's now the head coach, but he's made their defense that used to be very bad in a lot of cases. He's turned it into a consistently good unit. They've got good players at all 3 levels. You got Cameron Jordan, Marcus Davenport on the defensive line. Demario Davis is an excellent linebacker. And then you got Lattimore at corner, and they got Honey Badger Matthew at safety now. So that's strong players at all levels. The last 2 weeks, they have not allowed each of their opponents, which were the Bucks and the Panthers, to get 300 total yards in offense. Now both of those teams' offenses have really struggled so far this season, but still they've held them down. And so this is a big test. This is a big test for the Vikings offense. We got to have Kirk Cousins, and we got to have the good Kirk Cousins tomorrow, not the jumpy Kirk Cousins who's looking to check down at the moment notice. And we've got to stay out of 3rd and long situations, because I was looking up the stats and I actually checked our first game too. David, in play situations where it's 3rd and 5 or longer, the Vikings are 3 for 22 in those situations. 3 for 22. Which is approximately 14% of the time they are converting those down and distance situations. And that's, I imagine, I'm sure that all offenses in the NFL do not fare very well in those down and distance situations, but 14% sounds particularly bad. and so the Vikings cannot, if they're in those down and distance situations consistently. I am not confident they're going to be able to overcome them. I think that's going to lead to a lot of 3-and-outs, empty drives, and struggle. We're going to struggle to score points if we're constantly in 3rd and 5 or longer. We can't be in those situations, particularly against a Saints defense, which is I think is
good.
Pretty good. So that's big problems there if we're in 3rd and long a vast majority of the time tomorrow.
Okay. One last thing that wasn't on the notes. Are you buying all this travel stuff? Saints went early to adjust. Vikings landed yesterday morning. Who do you think did it best?
Well, intuitively, I think it would make more sense to me to go early and get acclimatized, but Terrell Williams said they don't want to get acclimatized. Like that they're hoping that they're there such a short amount of time it doesn't impact them, and they won't get into the London time, which will help them while they're in London, but also help them on the way back for next week because they won't be trying to get adjusted to a new time zone once again. So that is the gambit he is playing. Yes, tomorrow we will. Maybe that won't have an impact at all. But if the Vikings lose, there's people are certainly going to point to them going over so late and saying, "You guys screwed up. You should have did what the Saints did and gone over there early and got your and got your bodies a little bit more adjusted to the time zone difference." But I think that it would make I would want to go earlier as opposed to later. But we'll see if it has any impact on the game, and maybe the Vikings players will let us know publicly what they thought of it too.
Well, I think it's who slept and who didn't sleep. I've traveled east and west to Europe, to even further than that, to the desert, Afghanistan, dozens of times, right? And I've flown backwards that way too. I can tell you from personal experience, flying east is easier than flying west, going out there versus coming back home. It's when it comes to body clock type deal. What some of the players said, like me generally, as soon as the gear goes up, the eyes go closed, they go to sleep. Boom, they're out, right? And then they're waking up when the stewardess, all right, chairs in the upright position, lock, tray tables up and locked, buckle in, we're getting ready to land. That's the perfect flight. You sleep through the whole thing. It's wonderful, right? And then they got there and they talked about our sports science guys with the blue light therapy to keep them awake. I've also used chemicals like in the Monsters. I've talked about it before, where you can set your body clock. But generally when you're going, you're good. You're better going. And that first day is, you get there and you're sort of off, but you make it through and you sleep. Second day is okay. It's generally the second or third day, especially the third day, that it whacks you on the jet lag. They should be, I think they're going to be fine. And believe it or not, Kirk Cousins is best in the morning. They're playing a morning game. That's his body clock. He's best in the morning. He's worse at night, i.e. prime time, on Monday night. He plays better in the morning. He's a morning person. Morning people are going to appreciate that sort of morning deal. Even if we're just adjusting, they're going to be more refreshed in the morning. They're going to play better. I think that's going to help. And then because it is a business trip, or they're considering that, and they're considering it, for the 2 games, like Purple Hayes said, they're coming back to Chicago game we have next week. To me, always flying west and flying home was harder to adjust to than it was flying the other direction. It took me longer. And they can generally say 1 hour per time zone equals 1 day for adjustment to body clocks to get your circadian rhythms going. There's ways to cheat that, but it's still a process. So if they don't adjust as much and they're fine on the short business trip, they'll do better going into next week into Chicago. They won't be as sluggish as New Orleans may be going into their next week game, because I don't think either one of them has the bye. I think they pushed it off. So it's going to be curious to see. I think they're making the right choice, but we'll find out Sunday, tomorrow morning. The game starts at 8:30 Central, 7:30 your time, 6:30, hippie time on the West Coast. It's going to be a fun one. Absolutely fun one. RB29.
Dante, a lot of great football to watch.
Dalton and Hill, you trust, right? You got to trust somebody. So why not? Dante Jones, can't wait till tomorrow. So much great football to watch. And that's a good thing about the London games. We get to watch the game in the morning, and then we still have a full slate after that if you love watching football all day. So it should be a good one. What is your prediction? Speaking of dogs, I'm hearing yours now. What's your prediction on this game?
I've been on the Vikings Kool-Aid all 3 games, picked them to win, but tomorrow I've got a funny feeling about this one. I think that we're going to be down 23-20.
Ooh. See where I gave my prediction earlier. I think we're going to win by 10 points. I think it's going to be like a 30-20, a 31-21. I hope it's more than that. But I think the Vikings are going to come out firing. I think Justin Jefferson and Keenan McCardell and, the defensive backs and the other wide receivers, they're studying all week what the tells are, and their lessons of the week is tells, both on the DB side and on the wide receiver side. And they're working on it. The defensive backs working on finding tells, and the wide receivers working on not showing tells. And I think they're going to have a very, very good game. So that's why I say the Vikings beat the Saints by 10 points. Even with the Red Rocket playing, there's only so much luck a Ginger can have, and I think his is expended. So we'll see. But it should be fun. Hey, I want to thank everybody that's joined us today. This was outstanding. Appreciate RB29 and the Oilers, Nola, all the Saints fans that hopped on, all the Vikings fans that wanted to hear why Justin Jefferson, what's wrong with Justin Jefferson. We hope that we illustrated enough, gave you from the person's word, Darius Slay, exactly why there's something wrong and how he can go about fixing it. It was a great show. We appreciate you watching. It means the world to us. As always, like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you can. It helps the algorithm do its thing. If you're listening on the podcast, please rate us. It helps. It's a great thing, and we love bringing you good football talk. This time, particularly around the Vikings, but also around the league. And we thank you. Any last words there, Darren?
No, sir. Happy everybody could come.
Oh. And Darren just dropped off. His computer probably died. Anyways, he's happy everybody could join us. It's been a long show. I do want to say what we say normally. Vikings win. Vikings win. Go on tomorrow. Vikings win. And Skol Vikings! Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.